So first of all, don't ask to see the baby, ask to see the mom. You will have one appointment, it's at 6 weeks postpartum, and they're pretty much like, yep, everything looks good, you're good to go. And all of a sudden I was just in this really, really dark place. And I just wanted to talk about this on this video because again, like it's just not talked about enough. I'm officially 12 weeks postpartum, which means I am closing out the 4th trimester, as they call it. If you're unfamiliar with the 4th trimester, it is called this because these 12 weeks after you give birth are a trip. Let me tell you, it is hormone fluctuations, just emotional roller coaster, and add on the fact that you now have a baby, it is a lot. And there's a reason why it's called the 4th trimester. So I'm finally closing out that period, and I wanted to kind of take a moment to reflect, share my experience with you guys, especially for any other moms out there that are expecting, new moms, recent moms, etc. I felt really alone in my kind of 4th trimester, and so I hope that by kind of sharing my postpartum 4th trimester experience, I'm just providing, you know, some relatability for other moms out there. And then I also am going to finish up this video with a quick little Q&A. I received quite a few questions over on Instagram, so I'm going to try and address all of those quickly at the end of this video. So it's going to be a cozy little chit chat, so grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or even a glass of wine. I made myself a little cup of tea. I'm actually battling a little bit of a cold right now, which is horrible, but I am kind of on the upper end of it. I think I'm like almost better, so having a little cup of tea to kind of help boost my immune system a little bit. So first I wanted to talk about sort of the physical healing of childbirth, of labor and delivery. I actually of course made a whole dedicated video with my labor and delivery story, so I will link that, but just to give you kind of a quick overview, I had a very, very long labor, a difficult delivery. I pushed for like 4.5 hours and it was exhausting. It took a very, very big physical toll on my body. In the end, of course, everyone was here happy, healthy, so it is, you know, a happy experience at the end of it, but it was very, very challenging for me. And I remember those first few days kind of after delivering the baby, I was so sore, like my upper body, my legs. I was honestly not expecting that at all, to feel like physically sore. Your muscles are sore from like tensing and pushing, and it was just pretty crazy. But that soreness really only lasted a couple of days, so it wasn't too bad. As far as bleeding, I probably bled for like an entire month afterwards. I was expecting to kind of stop bleeding within a few days of coming home, like maybe like 2 weeks maximum post giving birth, but I actually bled for like the entire first month postpartum. So just be mindful of that. Everyone's kind of bleeding experience is different, and I thought like something was wrong with me because I was still bleeding. I know some people bleed for like 6 weeks, so it can really just depend on you and your body, but it took me about a month to stop bleeding. I had an episiotomy, so that did take a while to start feeling better. I do think it's kind of crazy that, you know, we have all of these doctor's appointments leading up to labor and delivery, and then you have your baby and you have one appointment, it's at 6 weeks postpartum, and they're pretty much like, yep, everything looks good, you're good to go, like no other follow-ups unless there's actually something wrong. So I think that's pretty crazy, and I also feel like you should not be expected at 6 weeks to be completely healed. You might feel totally fine, and that's great, but I did not feel healed yet. So just remember that everyone's kind of healing experience is different, and you know, it might take you longer than 6 weeks. You might also feel good at 3 or 4 weeks postpartum. For me, having the episiotomy, I started feeling pretty much back to normal around like the 10-week mark, so it did take me a lot longer to start feeling better, and just again, know that everyone's experience is different. Next, I wanted to talk about my experience breastfeeding. So again, everyone's experience is so different, and I also know people say like baby to baby, like if I have multiple babies, my experience with other babies might be different from this experience as well. But I overall have had a really, really positive experience breastfeeding, which is great. I'm so grateful for that. She literally latched first try. It wasn't really like painful or anything for me. I will say it did take my milk a few days to come in, and that was actually part of the reason we got stuck in the hospital for as long as we did, because our hospital wouldn't discharge us until she had her first bowel movement, and she wasn't having it just because I wasn't really like producing anything. So I ended up having to supplement with formula for just a couple of days in the hospital, just to get her like bowels and everything like working. But once my milk came in, it was probably like 5 or 6 days postpartum. Your breasts feel rock hard. They get very engorged. I think it took probably between like that 8 and 10 week mark for my body not be overproducing or underproducing and kind of like get in a good rhythm with her and like what she needs. And I actually just recently made a video on like my top breastfeeding tips, milk supply tips, and all of that stuff, so I'll link that video. But a few things I'll mention: I make sure that I'm eating enough food, I'm eating enough protein, and I actually have been going to a breastfeeding support group here that's offered at my hospital. It's free, and that has really helped me just like share any concerns that I have with breastfeeding, get any extra help even if I wasn't really struggling. It's just nice to know certain things are normal or whatever, that type of thing. All right, next let's talk about my mental health, my mental healing, because that has been probably the hardest part about the 4th trimester and being postpartum. I have always kind of had anxiety. I've always been an anxious person, so I was expecting to have some postpartum anxiety. I guess I wasn't expecting it to be as intense as it was, and I also wasn't expecting to have like postpartum depression as well. After giving birth, your hormone levels drop like an insane amount, like 1,000% or something crazy like that. And because of that, your emotional state, everything is just like so out of whack. And I remember, I think I was around a week and a half, like 10 days postpartum, and all of a sudden I was just in this really dark place. It's hard to describe, but I was having intrusive thoughts, very deeply concerned about the baby. There were times where I was feeling very like withdrawn from her, the desire to like hold her, and so I was feeling that like disconnect, and that was really scary to me as well, because of course I just wanted to be, you know, the best mom for my baby. So anyways, I was feeling really down and that type of thing, and ultimately decided to actually contact my primary care provider earlier than the 6-week appointment, because I was like, I am not okay. Like, I need to talk to a therapist or something. I just need to like tell my doctor. And so I actually ended up having a doctor's appointment at about 4 weeks postpartum, and just shared a lot about like how I was feeling, my concerns, and that type of thing. And I highly recommend that if you know, don't have an appointment scheduled for 6 weeks, but you're not feeling right, like get the help, talk to your doctor, and just start taking steps to feel better, because you don't have to feel like crap. I just want to say that. But yeah, so I ended up actually reaching out to my doctor early, had an appointment at 4 weeks. They ended up referring me to see a therapist because I didn't really want to go on medication, at least not yet. I wanted to see if I could kind of like talk through my feelings and those things before starting to add like chemicals into my body. So I actually spent several weeks trying to find a therapist that worked for me, and I actually just like a week ago started seeing a therapist that I really like. So I'm gonna start seeing her weekly through however long I need in order to kind of work through some of the things that I've been feeling. But right now, I would say some of the like depression type of feelings have subsided quite a bit. It's more so the anxiety for me is very intense. We went on a trip to Big Bear and she coughed like 2 times, and I was like, oh my god, like she has whooping cough or something, and like freaking out. And it's just, there's a healthy level of worrying about your baby versus an unhealthy level. It like had sort of made my trip to Big Bear less fun, less enjoyable, and ultimately like that's not really a fun way to live. You should be able to enjoy your life, enjoy your time with your baby, and not let your anxiety like completely consume you. And I just wanted to talk about this on this video because again, like it's just not talked about enough. I feel like the more I've opened up about it, the more I've heard from other women that they experienced, you know, postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, intrusive thoughts, those types of things. When I started having like intrusive thoughts and some of these depressive feelings, like I genuinely thought I was going crazy until literally my husband Googled like postpartum depression symptoms, and I like checked off every single, you know, symptom that they were describing. So I just want to talk about it in order to kind of build some awareness and help other women feel like you're not crazy for feeling these things. You're not alone. It's very common, I think, in women to experience some level of postpartum anxiety or depression. So if you are struggling with it, get help. And if you're still pregnant, maybe you're not even concerned about getting postpartum depression, I would strongly recommend just, you know, Googling the symptoms so that you're aware of like what could happen, so that way you know and can recognize it if you start feeling those things. On the topic of mental health, I wanted to quickly touch on body image. That's something that I have really struggled with postpartum. Obviously, if you follow my channel a lot, you know I care a lot about, you know, being active, fitness, eating well, and those types of things. I think during my pregnancy, I kind of let it go a little bit as far as my diet anyway. There were times during my pregnancy that I was on bed rest. There were times that I was super nauseous and going to the gym was like just not even an option. But I also went a little bit overboard on some of the food. I think like I didn't need to eat as much Taco Bell as I probably did. I think I gained a little bit more weight than I was expecting. But that being said, I'm really working on my body image postpartum and realizing like during that time I was just doing, you know, what felt right to me. And I've really been trying to think about like, I grew a baby from scratch. She was a healthy full-size baby and my body is going to reflect that, and that's okay. Trying to work on giving myself grace, remembering what my body went through and that it did something absolutely amazing and miraculous. And then lastly, I wanted to touch on how to be there for your new mom friends, especially if you don't have kids yet. I only have a couple of friends that have babies, like my sister, my sister-in-law, and a couple of girlfriends here. I don't like know that many people with babies, and that's totally fine. I completely get it because I was in their shoes, you know, not too long ago, and I have learned what I think a lot of moms really want during this postpartum phase from their friends and family. So I just wanted to share this in case, you know, you don't have kids, but you want to know how you can support your friends that do or just had a baby. So first of all, don't ask to see the baby, ask to see the mom. Check in with the mom and how she's doing, ask how she's healing before even asking to see the baby. Touch the baby, hold the baby. Before you ask how the baby is doing, ask how mom is doing. A lot of times in those first few weeks postpartum, like she just wants a hug. She wants to know her friends are there for her, that her friends care how her mental health is, that her friends care how she's recovering and those things. So just start out by asking how mom is, how she's recovering, how she's feeling, and then you can ask about the baby. And if you go visit her, make sure you give her a hug first before asking to hold the baby. On that same line, like please ask your mom friends how they are doing mentally and be prepared for an honest answer. Know how to respond if they tell you that they have baby blues, if they tell you they have postpartum depression or they're struggling with anxiety. I need to be told that, you know, my feelings are normal, my feelings are really common, and, you know, maybe give me a little 2 cents of advice to reach out to my doctor, or that even just that you're there for me, willing to listen if I need to talk about how I'm feeling. Ask about my birth story. Moms want to tell their birth experience, and sometimes, you know, nobody asks, and you just really need to like tell that story because it was an experience. It was maybe traumatic, or maybe it was just truly amazing and you just want to share it. So ask her to tell you her birth story. And then lastly, don't ask her what she needs help with, just offer it. A lot of times I don't want help with the baby, actually. I want help with the other stuff. Don't ask her what she needs, what she wants, or say, let me know how I can help you. Just do it, because our minds are so hyper focused on the well-being of our baby, of holding our baby, taking care of our baby, that it actually genuinely becomes hard to make a decision around, what do I want to eat for dinner? I don't know what I want to eat. Just make me something, feed me. I don't care. Or if you want to bring, you know, a gift or something, bring a pre-cooked meal, so that one less thing to think about, to worry about. If you want to help clean, don't come over and ask what needs cleaned. Just ask where the vacuum is and start vacuuming, or ask where the mop is and start mopping, or just start doing the dishes. Don't even ask, just take initiative. And a lot of times it's not that I need help with holding the baby or taking care of the baby, because I want to hold the baby and I want to take care of her, but because of that, the laundry hasn't been done or the floors haven't been mopped and things like that. So hopefully that helps you out if you don't have a baby and you want to help your new mom friends out a little bit. Great. I am probably getting close to flirting with fate here on the end of her nap time. She's napping in the bassinet right there. So I'm going to try and answer these questions. I got quite a few. I'm going to try and answer them very quickly. So would I have done anything differently? I'm going to answer this in regards to first like my birth and labor, and then also postpartum. But anything differently with my labor and delivery experience, I would say, knowing what I know now, I would have stayed away from like the medical interventions, like using as much Pitocin as I did, and going with some of the other options first in order to continue to augment my labor. Basically, my labor was really stalled, and I wish I had defaulted to like the balloon and breaking my water before just using some of the medications, because I think that would have really sped things along a lot more effectively for me and my body anyway. Other than that, no, I'm really glad that I still had, you know, a regular traditional birth. I didn't have to have a C-section, so I'm really happy with that decision. That question was presented to me, but I ultimately decided to keep trying, and I am very grateful that I was able to do that. So that's one thing that I'm really happy about. And then as far as anything I would have done differently postpartum, I think one thing that is kind of hard and unique to my situation is we live in Las Vegas. Our family lives in Washington and California, and so we had a lot of people visiting us right after we had the baby and staying here at our house, and I found that to be a little bit overwhelming at times, especially because I was exclusively breastfeeding. So I would have to kind of every 2 hours go up into the nursery, sit by myself, be a little bit secluded. That was just a little bit harder than I think it could have been. Of course, if family like also lived here in town, it probably would have been easier to just have somebody over for dinner or have somebody over for a couple of hours versus like hosting family. She woke up in the middle of that question, so we're gonna try and finish up this Q&A together. I think what I was just trying to say is, like, if you're in a similar situation where you have family coming from out of town, maybe just ask them to get a hotel or an Airbnb or something, because it can be just really overwhelming, you know, having a newborn baby and having people constantly in your house. But it was very helpful to have, you know, my parents, my sister, my mother-in-law coming and visiting and helping. It was just a lot having people stay with us. When did I give birth versus my due date? So my due date was June 29th, and I had her on June 25th, so we got 4 extra days together, which I'm so grateful for. Again, in my labor and delivery video, I talk a lot more about it, but my water actually broke on the 23rd when I was 39 and 1. I was in the hospital for like 48 hours before she was born. But yeah, so 4 days early. How have the dogs reacted to the baby? Meeting her, it was actually very sweet. They were both very good with her, very excited to see her, to meet her, all those things. Loki, he is absolutely obsessed with her. He wishes that we would just like let him lick her face, lick her entire body. He would do that if we would let him. He's very obsessed with her, so I think it'll be really sweet as, you know, she grows up to see kind of their relationship unfold. I can see them being best buds. Doodle is a little bit indifferent. She's kind of just like, whatever, you're here, I'm gonna be on the other end of the couch, or, you know, somewhere else basically. So she is kind of whatever about her. But overall, I would say the adjustment is going well, and we'll see kind of how it continues to adjust over time as she grows and gets bigger. How do I make sure she gets enough sleep during the day? I will say that I have been very strongly just kind of going with intuition and following her lead as far as like schedules and sleeping and nap time and all of that. I don't like force her really to wake up unless we're really pushing time on a feed. I also don't try and force her to take a nap if she's not tired at all. So I really just, like I said, follow her lead, and will say at this kind of like 2 to 3 month mark, she really has only wanted contact naps. So we do a lot of time like in a carrier and on top of me. Did I debate a birthing center versus a hospital? I did not. I honestly didn't even know that like you could give birth somewhere else really other than at home. So no, I did not. And I am happy that I was at a hospital. Based on my birthing experience, would I have more kids? If you had asked me that in the first few weeks after giving birth, first few days, first few weeks, I would have said absolutely not. I'm one and done. But let me tell you, having a baby is like the biggest feedback loop for baby fever. I think because like cuddling with your baby and breastfeeding and stuff releases a lot of oxytocin actually. So it has made me want to have like so many more babies because I just love it so much. She's so cute and I love the cuddles. I love it all. So hopefully it works out for us to have more kids. If not, you know, one is great, but hopefully we can have more kids, and I would absolutely love to have more. Did I overpack my hospital bag, have everything I needed, or wish I would have brought blank? I would say I did not overpack. I think my hospital bag was pretty spot on. The only thing I think I had my mom bring was some like nipple cream, and then Chris wishes he had brought like a bigger blanket for sleeping, or even like a sleeping bag, because the blankets that they gave him at the hospital were like paper thin. And we did bring one blanket for him, but it was like, you know, a throw blanket, so it was kind of small. So he just like, you know, didn't have a great sleeping experience, I guess. But you know, that's the way it goes for the dads, I think. How's my day-to-day going? I'm not gonna really spend a lot of time answering that because I have posted a couple different videos sharing, you know, day in my life, a realistic day. Oh, that's Mama's hair. I also recently just posted 24 hours with a newborn, so I will link those videos so you can see kind of what my day-to-day kind of looks like right now. How am I feeling as a first-time mom? Overall, I would say I love being a mom. I was really nervous about how I would feel, you know, missing my old life. And there are times when you do feel like that, like, oh my God, what decision did I make? But at the end of the day, having a baby has really felt like the most natural thing in the world. Wouldn't trade it for anything. I absolutely love being a mom. So yeah, it's my main personality trait now is having a baby. The next question was, how's your mental health? The person also said, like, I'm asking because I really struggled with mine. Obviously, I talked a lot a few minutes ago about my mental health, my mental recovery and that type of thing. So I will just say at this point, I'm just really glad that I did, you know, take the time to find a therapist, that I have taken my mental health, my mental recovery very seriously. It changes day by day. Like some days I feel great. I don't feel anxious. I feel like this is the best job ever. And then other times I'm like feeling super overwhelmed, overstimulated, super anxious, feeling down, feeling blue. So it really just depends on the day. Like I said, I'm just glad that I am, you know, taking the steps to get help and get better. Did I get an epidural and what helped me make that decision? I actually took a birthing class leading up to my labor and delivery, and I'm really glad that I did that just because it really educated me on different options in the labor room. I decided I didn't want an epidural unless I felt like I really needed it. I wanted to stay really open to that, but I also really wanted to kind of see where my pain tolerance was and see like if I could do it without an epidural. So that was my plan. I was gonna try and go no epidural, and turns out I have a low pain tolerance. It was so much more painful than I thought it was going to be, and I did end up getting an epidural. I'm really glad that I did because I think it just made the rest of my labor way more manageable. So just get educated, learn about it, and I think my advice would be to like be open to either way, because you just don't want to be disappointed, I guess, in the moment if you are so set on not having one and feeling like you do end up needing one. Okay, 2 more questions. What is the most surprising thing I've loved and had a hard time with baby being here? So most surprising thing that I've loved, I would say, is breastfeeding. Actually was like really didn't want to breastfeed coming into having a baby. I was kind of like, it feels weird, I don't know, breastfeeding's just not for me. And then actually my husband convinced me to just give it a try. He was kind of like, I just would hate for you to feel like you missed out on something because you didn't even give it a try. And I was like, okay, fine. Plus I knew that there were like a ton of, you know, benefits to breastfeeding, and so I was like, all right, well, I'll just give it a try, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself if it doesn't work out. Like, I'm totally okay with formula. So that was kind of my mindset going into breastfeeding, and ultimately, like I had mentioned earlier, it worked great. So I was surprised at how much I actually have loved breastfeeding. I think it just gives us like quality time together that, you know, we wouldn't normally have. It makes me feel even closer to her, and it's just great like bonding time. So I really have loved breastfeeding, and that was something I was not expecting. And then something that's been surprisingly hard is, even though I knew having a baby would be a full-time job, super time-consuming, I wasn't expecting it to be, I guess, as time-consuming as it is. I thought I would be like, oh, I'll set her down for, you know, a nap. She'll nap for an hour, and I'll get so much done during that 1 hour nap. And it's like, no, it takes, you know, 15 minutes to set her down, and then she actually only ends up napping for like 35 minutes, and then you end up using that 35 minutes to get caught up on dishes or whatever, and it's just not as much free time as I thought I would have. So doing things like editing, recording videos, self-care time is just so much less than I expected. So it really has been a lot of like coordinating with Chris to even be able to work out, as well as like self-care time, learning how to edit with her on top of me. I obviously knew having a baby would be very time consuming, but I guess I just didn't realize like how time consuming it would be. And then the last question was any advice I have to someone that is expecting, or any advice I received that I found super helpful. I think the biggest advice I have is to do your best to like go with the flow, follow the baby's lead, follow her cues or his cues as much as you can. I think putting pressure on yourself to have things go a certain way, whether that be with your birth or with breastfeeding, or trying to follow a super rigorous, strict schedule for naps and feedings and stuff, that's just going to make you even more stressed and overwhelmed. So I feel like I have spent a lot of time just like trying to learn her cues for hunger, cues for tiredness, and I feel like that has actually worked out a lot better for us. So, I mean, everyone's experience is different, but just try not to put too much pressure on yourself to have things go a certain way in your head, and be open to going with the flow and going with like just how things work out. And if there's any advice that I received, of course, everyone says like, don't blink, soak in the moments. They go by so fast, and that's so true. So that's definitely something I've really tried to do with her. It's just soak in every smile, every giggle, every little thing that has happened, because it is so fun and it really does fly by. Okay, I actually finished up answering the questions, but then received a few more regarding like getting pregnant and some advice I have there. So I just quickly wanted to insert this into the video because I think this is also important for people, and I want to be helping as many people as I can. So these are the questions, and then I'll just kind of speak to my experience. But from someone who hopes to be pregnant, what should I do now to be prepared? Did I take prenatals? Would I do anything differently preparing for pregnancy? Is there anything I wish I had done, health related or not, etc. So I will preface this with saying that I actually had a pretty easy time getting pregnant, and I know that a lot of women don't. They have a really hard time getting pregnant. So I just want to say, you know, take my advice with the knowledge that I actually got pregnant quite easily, and every person is different and experience is different. So it did only take Chris and I maybe like 2 or 3 months to get pregnant from when I went off of birth control. I immediately started tracking my cycle though. I'll link down in the description box the ovulation tracker system that I was using. It's only like $15 on Amazon, and I personally feel like it actually works really well for me. Again, everyone's different. I know some of these ovulation tracker things don't work great for everyone, but that is one thing I started doing immediately once I came off of birth control, because I knew I didn't want it to take forever for us to get pregnant. So I was like, well, might as well optimize kind of my chances by just automatically knowing when I'm ovulating. So that was one thing that I did, and I'm glad that I did that because I do think it helped us, you know, time things appropriately to help get pregnant. I will also say, during that time kind of leading up to when I got pregnant, I was very adamant about my health. I was tracking my macros. I was exercising like 4 or 5 days a week. And not that that necessarily impacts your reproductive system, but I personally feel like every little thing that you can do to make your body a little bit healthier and more prepared to carry a baby is gonna help. Of course, people who, you know, don't exercise and don't eat well get pregnant all the time. So obviously that doesn't technically have any direct correlation. I just think it doesn't hurt. And I know that by eating like very well balanced meals, you know, eating healthy fats and eating enough protein and things like that can actually help regulate your hormones a little bit. So in a sense, it can help out maybe just incrementally, but it's not going to solve any like infertility issues. I did start taking prenatals probably like 3 months before we conceived. And I would say like, I don't know, for me, it was just being really in tune with my body, treating my body well by eating well and exercising, taking those prenatals and timing things so that it lined up with, you know, my ovulation. And that worked for us. But again, I know tons of people who it takes them a year, it takes them multiple years. They're doing all of those things and it's still not working. Know that it's normal for it to take 6 months. It's normal for it to take longer if you're a little bit older. I think Chris and I both had the mindset of like, we want to have a baby. We would love to, you know, get pregnant, have a baby. But I think both of us were kind of like, it's okay if it doesn't work out. Like, we're okay with our relationship being this, if this is all it ever is. I also have always really been open to adoption and going down that path. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, if I can't get pregnant for some reason, like I'm personally super open to adopting. So I would say if you can at all, just try and have like an open mind about it. Try not to put too much pressure on yourself because that's just gonna make you more stressed. You know, tracking ovulation, eating well, prenatals aren't going to fix fertility issues. So if it's taking you a really long time, I would say reach out to your doctor to see if there's any like underlying issues or anything that can be resolved if it is taking you a long time. So that's my 2 cents on conceiving. That is everything I think I wanted to say for 4th trimester recap. Postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, body image, breastfeeding, Q&A, advice, all of that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed hearing about my postpartum experience, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Leave a comment if you are, you know, a mom, expecting mom, etc. Down in the comments. I would love to hear any other thoughts you have on your postpartum experience, or maybe any other questions you have. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch up with you next time.